Hey everyone, how is it going? And welcome to my KubeCon session. I hope everybody is having a really great time here at KubeCon. I am coming at you live from my living room in San Francisco, California. I'm about 4 feet off the rest of the living room here, so I kind of feel like I'm up on stage at a podium here, so it feels a little bit natural. Anyway, hi, I'm Kris Nóva. A couple of kind of quick housekeeping clerical things before we get started. Number one, if you haven't figured this out yet, there are like windows that you can like drag around. So if you click here, you can kind of move my face around, and I'll be doing a screen share with some slides here in a moment in a different window. So like feel free to build your custom Kris Nóva look and feel. If you want to chat with me while I'm doing this, I am live. So in the KubeCon community Slack channel, I have that pulled up here. So if you want to wave, feel free to wave, and I'll be able to read what you're saying and engage with you. So feel free to talk to me. And the last thing is I just wanted to say hi and welcome and good morning. I know this is a European event, but for me, it's 8:30 in the morning, so I'm drinking coffee. Wow, people are waving. Oh, hi, Kat. Good to see you, Kat. And Martin. And oh, Casper's here. Hey, Casper. One of my favorite cloud native Nordics. Hey, wow, a lot of people showing up. Hey, everyone. Hey, Nick is here from Australia. Desmond, a lot of people. Wow, this is really exciting. Okay, cool. So all of my friends are here watching me. No big deal. So wow, a lot of people. So while y'all say hello, I'm gonna get the screen share set up and we're gonna get going here. And we're going to talk a little bit about some lessons and some exciting things that I've learned in my life, and hopefully people walk away from this feeling happy and good about themselves. So here, let's close this, and we're going to do a screen share. There's a screen share, and you should, if people just want to give a quick thumbs up, you should be able to see my infrastructure bro hacker chick with some mountain pictures. And again, feel free to move things around. This is going to be the final, what you're going to be dealing with throughout the longevity of my presentation. So feel free to move it around. Wow, a lot of people here. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's good to see you. I'm happy everybody is here. Okay, so we're going to get started. And real quick, everybody, big deep breaths. We're gonna get pretty deep and get comfy. Stretch your back out, get your neck going, make sure everybody's nice and comfortable. We're gonna be doing some thinking and some talking, so I want to make sure everybody is ready for this. Okay, so I do have a few disclosures before we get into the nitty gritty of the presentation here, and I want everybody to take these with a grain of salt, but also, I did put a lot of thought into these. So please do listen to these disclosures here. First of all, I'm going to do my best not to offend anyone. I really am. I put a lot of thought into my words, and I have been working for about a decade now on this skill to really think about what I'm saying before it actually comes out of my mouth. You would be surprised how many people have yet to develop or master this skill. So I will do my best to use proper vernacular when appropriate, and I will do my best not to offend anyone, but there is a but. However, I do apologize if I do offend anyone, and I encourage you to share that with me so that I can learn and so that we can teach other people together. So I will do my best, and if I do offend you, or if you feel like I could have offended somebody else, please do let me know. I mean that sincerely. Next, I encourage you to talk about this. I encourage you to talk about this presentation with your friends, with your partners, with your mom, with your boss, with your kids. I really encourage you to desensitize the world to what I'm about to say. And at the very least, maybe you have a good conversation and get to connect with somebody you love. So I encourage you to talk about this. There is a but, however, please do leave me out of your personal conversations. I love you all, I promise. I am very interested in a lot of your personal journeys, but if I was to spend time out of my day connecting with every single person here, it would be overwhelming and it would exhaust me and it would be a full-time job. So know that I love you, but please do keep this to yourself. This is your journey for your footsteps alone. Um, I mean this sincerely. I am annoyed I have to give this talk. And what I mean by that is I love speaking at KubeCon. I love all of you. I'm beyond stoked to be giving a talk. I'm annoyed that it's 2020 and I'm on stage having to bring this to life because I feel like as a society and as a people, we should have been past this a long time ago. So I am annoyed with the fact that we haven't surpassed this journey as a society yet. So hopefully I can, in a small way, encourage everyone here watching this to take one small tiny step towards the path of making it such that people like myself don't have to give talks like this anymore. But I'm going to give it anyway because it's important. It's important to me. It's important to you. And I love all of you. And a lot of people are talking. I am going to do my best to read this, but there's a lot of noise here. So yeah, if you have something to say, I am reading it. And Desmond, I'm happy your daughter's watching. Hi to Desmond's daughter. Cheers. Okay, so those are my disclosures. Anyway, that's me. I'm super gay and I climb mountains, and that's me on top of Mount Hood. And in the background, you can see Mount Rainier and Mount Adams. And that's, I think Mount Hood, the summit is 11,000 feet above sea level. It's right next to Portland, Oregon. And that is, that's, I think, January of 2018. It was a super sunny day, but super icy cold. Anyway, I climbed to the top of a mountain and I brought a pride flag and somebody took a picture of me, and I like to use that in my slides. If you have questions, if you need help, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need me to connect you to someone, that's my open source email address. It's all over the internet. So, and like, if you email me, I might email you back. We'll see how it goes. But if you need to get a hold of me, that's a good place to start. So feel free to save that and use that as you need. Okay, let's get started. And on that note, coffee. So we're going to talk about my gender transition. We're going to talk about open source software, and we're going to talk about my career. All of these things are tightly coupled to some extent, based on a lot of things, and primarily the fact that if it wasn't for my career in tech, I ironically don't think I would have been able to afford a gender transition. And if it wasn't for my gender transition, after I was in tech, I don't think I would be where I am today in my career. So all of these things kind of happened in a weird order, but I think the order is important. And honestly, they all have a lot to do with each other, and they're all kind of in this weird, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the people who, like, you put the buckets down and everybody leans on each other, then you can take the buckets away and then everybody stands up. That's how I look at my career. Like, everything would come falling down if I tried to do it at one time, but just because of the way we set it up, it now holds itself together. So anyway, we're gonna kind of get into it here. Okay, once upon a time. I'm hoping everybody's laughing. In my mind, everybody's laughing right now. Once upon a time, I was a fucking bro. And I mean this. I was the broiest of bros, you guys. I was 26 years old. I had got a job as a Linux server administrator at a company in Lakewood, Colorado. And I wore khaki pants, penny loafers, and a button-up shirt my first day on the job. And I walked in there like I knew everything. And really all that I did was I had read a few articles on Linux and I took a test and I happened to pass it. And it was beyond easy for me. It was easy. I got a job. I walked in, they liked me. I was charismatic. Sign here. I got my first tech job. And I was Linux server administrator. And that was my intro to my career. I mean, I had done other things. I had worked in data centers and pulled cables, and I was an electrician for a while, but this was my first like desk job, right? And I was not a good person, to say the least, and we'll get more into that in a moment. So let's talk about what it was like at my first job. So let's see, Francis says, great, it's also my first KubeCon, and I'm super grateful and pleased for all the information. Good to see you, Francis. So my first job, I didn't really know what to expect. I was at the very bottom. I was just an IC. I was a lowly engineer, and there was this like confusing org chart above me I didn't really even understand. And everybody I worked with was very much like me. We were, kind of like hanging out. We worked together. We worked on the same thing. And it was very easy for me to fit in at the bottom layer. And we kind of all just looked up at this nebulous blob of people above us. And that was what it was like for me. And when I say, sorry, I had a phone call. When I say it was easy for me to get along, I mean that I was able to connect and I was able to adopt the culture of those around me. And that may seem like a very powerful thing, but there's one problem, which was this was the culture all around me. And I kid you not, my first job, I was on a team of 6 other men. My boss was a man. His boss was a man. His boss's colleague was a man, and the CEO was a man. And the CEO's daughter was the head of HR. She was the only woman I ever saw around the office, and that was normal. That was my first job. I was desensitized to that from day one. I worked at that place for 3 years. And this culture it spread, and people came and went. And as people came and went, the culture came and went with them. And my culture continued to grow, and my culture continued to spread. And this is just what I learned, right? So let's talk about what that culture was. So what I learned after looking back at my first job many years later was men enjoy to do manly things. So I want you to imagine a group of men hanging out at work, competing with each other. They were challenging each other. They were literally fighting with each other for fun. They were sparring over code. And this culture was recursive. It grew, right? And as people came and went, the culture went with them. And as my career progressed, as the more I fed into this culture, the more I was rewarded. The easier it was for me to be effective and to be like a good kid at my job. So I found this really great picture that I want people to really take a deep look at, that for me really encapsulates my first job. This right here. This was rewarded. People looked at this, what you're seeing, a couple of white guys hanging out, talking about code, drinking a beer and some coffee, looking like they're productive. And this was rewarded. If you did this, you got a promotion, period. And if you got to the point where you got a promotion, if you did more of this, you would get more promotions. And then you could teach people how to do this. And then those people would get promoted. And next thing you know, you see this sort of like telescoping nature of this culture that I was a part of and that I didn't know any better of. But something was wrong. And something was kind of like irking me in the back of my head. And as I started to, engineer my way through that, I started to learn more and more about myself and about what was going on. And I started to have these thoughts of like, maybe this culture isn't right for me, or maybe this isn't the healthiest culture for me. And then I started to look at my relationship with women in the office. I was mean. I was manipulative. I was derogatory. I used to say things like, write a unit test like a man. And now I say those same things ironically, because I actually used to say them sincerely. And it wasn't a healthy culture for me. It certainly wasn't a healthy culture for others. And it didn't really inspire anyone to make the software better. It inspired us to focus on the culture that more than it inspired us to focus on the software. It inspired us to be toxic. I was toxic. So if you think about it, when I use the word toxic, what I like to say is toxicity grows. Right. If you look at, if you look at how bacteria works, if you look at how like even like a toxic spill, like pollution works, it spreads. And as one thing becomes infected, hello 2020, other things can become infected. And before you know it, you have this pandemic. And what I noticed was the spreading nature was what was rewarded. If I walked into the office, like I want y'all to imagine me, like, like walking into the office and, sitting down at my desk and like did the classic bro, like, I don't know if y'all have ever seen anybody do this, the headphone slam, where like, my code failed, or like the cron job broke, or the bill didn't work, and you do the headphone slam, you stand up, and, table flip, and everybody gets all pissed off. It was this reactive, angry culture, and that was good. That's what people rewarded. And if you yelled at people, and if you manipulated people, and if you tried to lie about the person next to you to get ahead, that was rewarded. And that was the culture that I was brought up in. And that is the culture I see a lot, even to this day. Remember earlier in the talk, I said I was annoyed to give this talk. This is one of the reasons why. It's because we're still dealing with this. So anyway, as I'm going through a lot of this, I realized, one, I hate this culture. This is not good for anyone. And two, I'm different. This isn't me. This doesn't feel right. Like, I was doing it because that's what I saw and that's what was rewarded. And I was very good at this thing called chameleoning, or I guess I just verbed that, but I was a chameleon, meaning I could change who I am to match my surroundings such that I would fit in. And it was really, I had been doing it my whole life. It was really easy for me to do that at work and just say, oh yeah, I'm a toxic bro. Like, get out of my way. I'm going to go write some code and my code's perfect and screw you if you don't like it. And so that was kind of how I started. And that's how a lot of the toxicity started. So I began questioning my gender, and I realized this was actually a more accurate representation of the org chart. Now, this was fundamentally hard for me because so many people saw the org chart as it was before. And so many people had these pre-built cognitions in their mind about who I was and what I was, that for me to challenge that and for me to change it was really hard, especially when you look at the dynamic between, like, even if you look at the endocrine system, but if you look at the dynamic between masculinity and femininity, it's not easy for feminine-minded people to challenge masculine-minded people. It's just fundamentally hard. So I started taking HRT, I started taking estrogen, and that changed everything for me. I mean, it changed the way I look at the world. The lens in which I perceive the world began to shift. It was a biological change. I had never experienced anything like it in my life. I wrote a blog post that I think encapsulates this, and I'm going to use the title of the blog post to very clearly articulate what I had to end up doing in order to survive in this particular situation. I had to learn how to become a lady like a man. And what I mean by that is I had to fight. I had to get angry. I had to compete. I had to challenge those around me and speak the language of those around me in order for me to love and embrace the feminine side of myself in my career. So naturally, this was hard. This was not easy. And I began to get frustrated and it didn't work and I quit the job. And I started another job and like version 2.0 and fast forward 12 months and I'm out of there. And so I started to notice that this was a pattern. And I started to look at exploring how I was going to deal with this, how I was going to start managing this. And that's when I started to notice things in the culture became important to me. And that's when I began to notice how the in-person culture really changed the software. So let's move forward. I like to say I was lost in a wasteland of toxic masculinity. I was in a situation where the software was like item 427 on the list of things to do. And, you know, the first 100 items were just like, how can you outbro the person next to you? And that was hard for me. I didn't do well in that environment. And I began to look for different jobs, for different roles that would embrace this diversity in myself and embrace this feminine side of me. So the lesson here is toxic culture spreads. And I want you to look at this in more than just masculinity and femininity, right? Toxic culture can be any culture. I've heard of companies who have toxic workout culture. That is, if you are one of the people at your office who don't work out every day, you're kind of put lower on the totem pole than those around you. I've heard of culture that is toxic scholarly culture. That is, if you're not published, if you don't read scholarly articles, if you don't cite your sources, if you're not a linguistic expert, you are considered lower and inferior than those around you. So with that, we can flip that around and we can say that not only does toxic culture spread, but we can actually have like positive culture and we can spread that as well. We're going to get more into that in a moment. But toxicity it's hard, it's manipulative, and it definitely has this ability to change you. And it has a really, really low barrier to entry. it's really easy to slip into it, and it's really hard to get out of it once you get into it. And fortunately for me, my gender transition was life-threatening enough that I threw my hands in the air and I was able to get out of it because I really fundamentally had nothing else to lose. So that was the first big major lesson I learned in my career, was be aware of what's happening around you at the social level, because that's going to have a big impact on, first of all, your personal health, but more importantly, on the software that you're building, or the product that you're designing, or the people that you're working with, or the customers that you're engaging. If you are customer facing and you work in a toxic work environment, the customer is going to know that the moment you walk in the door. And they're going to smell it, and it's either going to jive with their toxicity, in which case you're just having a big old toxic party and then everybody's hanging out, or they're going to say, hey, you know what, this isn't really working out for us. So it's just taking a step back. Remember, one of the first things I did was take a breather and just evaluating it and saying, like, you know, on a social level, what is actually happening and what types of behavior are being rewarded at my workplace or at my org. LOL, big old toxic party. Yeah. Okay. I feel like, you know, scene 2, enter open source. So as I'm going through my career, I discovered that, you know, working on a team was hard for me, especially because most of the teams I worked on were primarily man dominated. And I began to hide. I began to look for things to do on my team that did not involve engaging with the people around me. I wasn't happy there. I needed the paycheck. I liked coding. I liked doing what I was doing. But I didn't necessarily like the what I would consider the whiteboard experience. And I'm watching the clock here. If somebody could tell me what time my session gets done, so I know how much time I have left, that would be helpful. But what I consider the whiteboard experience, which is, you know, walking into the office, pulling out your whiteboard pen, and you're starting to draw on the wall, and, you know, you're having the conversation and you're talking up here and you're doing this whole like back and forth thing. For me, that was always a very intimidating experience, because what I noticed was whoever talked the loudest and yelled the loudest and seemed the most angry was typically the one who dominated the conversation. Whereas there's like little old me sitting in the corner, like, can you please just use blue when you're talking about databases and red when you're talking about database relationships, and quit yelling at each other, please? I ended in approximately 8 minutes. Okay, I'm going to hurry up. Thank you, Christoph. So anyway, the community here is what really, really worked well for me. And I began to, I have 12 minutes left. Okay, cool. So I can slow down a little bit. Thank you. So the community is what I defaulted to, because that involved working with people remotely. And these people, big secret here, they didn't know anything about me. So I began to transition, and I began to work in open source. And I put together a small list of projects here that I worked on while I was, I would say, transitioning or transitioned, or it's not a finite thing. Like, you're never done. I'm still transitioning. I started HRT like 8 years ago, and like I've had some surgeries, and like I'm still you know, I've grown my hair, I've cut my hair, I've grown my hair, I've cut my hair. Like it's a lifelong process. It's like, are you ever done learning Emacs? Are you ever done learning Linux? Like, no, it's a lifetime thing. So anyway, I began to be myself, and I started to love myself and wear what I wanted to wear and identify as I wanted to identify. And I began to secretly work on these open source projects, both for fun and for work. And I discovered some very interesting things about working in the open source community with people from all over the world. Nobody cared. As I was doing all of this, I remember, I think I was working in IRC, and I had like, you know, I was thinking about it for days. Like, I was like crying, and then I was happy, and I was crying, and then I couldn't sleep. And I was like, I'm going to tell the people in IRC that I'm a trans woman. And, you know, it freaked me out. And I remember I typed it, I deleted it. I typed it, I deleted it. And finally, hello, IRC, I am Kris Nóva, the trans woman. And I just closed my eyes and just hit enter. And they were like, Okay, you still fucked up the last commit. I don't know. Like, what do you want me to say here? Nobody cared was the point I'm trying to make. And that was beautiful. And I loved that. That was the first time I felt normal. If you remember at the beginning of the talk, I said, I'm annoyed I have to give this talk. That's the feeling that I wish we had in tech, was this feeling of like, it doesn't matter. It's just like, whatever, you're not special. I really, really wish that day could come. So anyway, this was my new gender identity for about a year and a half. I'm going to try to leave some time for questions too. What I mean by this is I was Kris Nóva on GitHub. In fact, the Kris Nóva name came from an algorithm I wrote, or a known algorithm, a phonics algorithm, and I just, put a bunch of names into it, and it picked out Kris Nóva, and I thought that was a pretty name, so I named my GitHub that, and then, a year and a half later, that actually became my last name. So I literally named myself after my GitHub handle. But anyway, this was my new gender identity for the longest time, and when I went to work, I was kind of this weird, like, queer cross-dresser boy-girl thing, when the people at the coffee shop called me her and the people at work called me he, and it was just kind of like whatever, and I just kind of dealt with it. But in open source, it didn't matter. I was just writing code. So that was me. Just a commit shaw, hanging out in the commit logs, not a boy, not a girl, wearing a dress, being me, writing code, and it was beautiful. Okay, so let's look at the open source org chart here. In fact, it even look like right now, like literally, this is a great example. Even in the Slack that I'm looking at, it looks like somebody just said, "Hey, you're doing awesome," and we got some thumbs up. And we have some other people. Most of these people, I don't know what gender they are. They're just a name and most of them don't even have like images for their name. Like, they're just a person, right? It's like, have you ever heard the expression, "What do you call a mailman?" Yeah, the mailman is coming. They are coming to my house. You don't know if it's a boy or a girl, even though it says mailman, which is kind of screwed up. But the point I'm trying to make is a lot of these people, they're just people. And that's what I was. And encapsulating that in your org chart is absolutely beautiful. So what I would do is I would encourage more people to stop looking at masculinity or femininity and to stop saying be a lady like a man, or stop saying, this is toxic or this is non-toxic or this is feminine or this is masculine, and just say we're people, and people are going to do people things. So I could be myself. And this was liberating because all of a sudden I was happy. I was smiling. I was like going to work and I was like, I'm going to go hang out with the homies in IRC. And, I don't know if they're boys or girls, and we're just going to do our thing. And it was really rad. Nova in Polish means new. Yeah, that's why I picked it. It's Icelandic for new. It's Latin for new. Now it's Polish for new. I'm sure it means new in a few other languages as well. Kris New. It's the new Kris, right? Do you get it? Kris Nóva? Yeah, right? See, I put a lot of thought into this. So yeah, I could be myself, and that was inspiring. And people around me noticed I was happier, and I was happier, and I began to develop relationships, and my code got better, and my presence at work got better. And even though I was the only girl in my org, I was still successful because I was confident. I was happy. I had that confidence of a cocky white guy tech bro because I was loving myself. And that was one of the first secrets I learned. In Catalan, Nova is feminine for new. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay. So this is it. I've been gardening a lot. I don't know if we have gardeners out there, but I found my garden. I found a place where I could be the new Kris, where I could grow, where I could turn into this person I was always meant to be. And in order to do that, I first had to protect myself. I had to create this safety bubble where I could be me. And after I started to grow, people said, "Hey, that's, she's growing there. There's something to this. We should encourage this. We should be a part of it." And it wasn't always easy, right? Like, it wasn't just like all of a sudden everything was great. Like, people tried to, people yell at me on the internet, even to this day. I get cussed out on Reddit. People send me DMs that are evil. It's not easy, but like, there's definitely more good in growing than bad. So I let myself grow. So this is the second lesson here. Let yourself grow. Be you, right? If you want to write code, write code. If you want to wear a dress, wear a dress. If you want to write unit tests, write unit tests. I promise you're going to make the world a better place if you're contributing to open source and you do what you love and you really try to make open source better. People are going to notice that, and people are going to be inspired by that, and people are going to be intimidated by that. And it's going to be really powerful for you. Okay, so the big lesson here, safe environments harbor growth and innovation. If you want to innovate, if you want to grow, you need a safe environment. You need a garden. Okay, so let's get real. You should probably write unit tests. Yeah. Well, you should write unit tests, but I'm saying if you would like to be the one on your team who writes the unit test, go for it. If you don't want to write unit tests, you should probably still write unit tests. So anyway, it wasn't that long ago. This is one of my first commits to Kubernetes. I tried to find the first one, but I was lazy and I got tired of skimming through Git logs, so I just picked this one. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is this: it wasn't that long ago that I transitioned, right? Like, I used to go by Kris Childress. This was my old name, and that's my email address there. My first few commits to Kubernetes, I still had a big capital M on my driver's license for mail. So as Kubernetes has grown, I've grown. And as Kubernetes has grown, I've grown. And as I've come and gone into Kubernetes and progressed into other tools, I've continued to grow because of the garden I've built for myself. So the Kubernetes community gave me a really great garden, but I've taken that garden and I've transplanted that, and I'm now building other gardens. So I learned to be proud of my name and of my work, but not like the bad kind of pride, like the good kind. Like, I really am proud of the work that I've done because I really worked hard on it. And I wouldn't be proud of it in a good way if I hadn't have grown with it. Everybody hates their code. Everybody looks back at their code and says, this is garbage. If you go look at my original COBS code, I'm like, what was I doing? This is Java written in Go. But that's okay. I'm still proud of it because I was growing as I was writing it. And even though my name was wrong and my gender was wrong, I'm still proud of the commits that I made. So it turns out my code and my work was fantastically beautiful when I loved myself. Even when it was ugly, it was still beautiful and still gorgeous. So as I continue to love myself, I continue to grow in my garden, and I continue to inspire myself and inspire other people. And it turns out you can actually create some really pretty, really beautiful things. And it doesn't have to be this toxic masculinity bro culture code. You can actually write pretty code and you can have beautiful code, and that's a good thing. More people should write pretty code, period. I'm sorry. More people should have rainbow code. More people should write pretty code. It should be easy to read. It should make you feel good. It should be beautiful. I became addicted to growing myself, my career, my hobbies. I started climbing mountains. Like I couldn't stop. Everything I wanted to do was all about growing. And what I noticed was, let me go back. As I was growing, I started to help other people around me grow. I started to create other gardens. So let me tell you guys the big secret to getting promoted at your job. The big secret to becoming an open source champion, the big secret on becoming a leader, a thought leader if you want, the big secret in becoming the person you want to be in your career, the next level up in your career, the leader, the champion. Become a gardener. Help other people grow. In the same way that you can grow, you have to help others. You would be astonished how many other people have never been given a chance to just grow and just become who they want to be, because they've been spending their entire careers and their entire lives trying to be this person just to fit in. But the second you light a fire underneath someone and give them an opportunity to be themselves, you will be astonished on what they can do, I assure you. So inspiring other people is equally as important as inspiring yourself. So teach others how to grow. So remember, toxicity spreads, both in the good way and in the bad way. There is safety in open source. You can be yourself. You can be a commit shop. Find yourself a little garden, and you can grow into something beautiful in the right environment. Help others to grow. You got this. Thanks, everyone. Yep, that's it.